Speak, for your servant is listening. Speak, for your servant is listening. Jesus found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." In John's gospel and in Samuel's life and all around us now are times of transition. Before anyone gets wild-eyed, I'm not going anywhere. That was not a surprise announcement. Samuel has been growing in stature and favor before God, having been conceived as a gift from God, whom his mother Hannah returned to God. Jesus, the end of chapter 1 of John and into chapter 2, is collecting John the Baptizer's disciples, going around, inviting those who have been following John to follow him. Samuel, who is to be a prophet of the Holy One of old, hears God's voice. Philip and then Nathanael, who have believed in John's message, are both invited to come and see. The people we hear about in the texts today face transitions in their lives, how best to follow God, and wondering to what they've been called. We find ourselves at similar crossroads with transitions all around us. Remembering the promises of our baptism and our answer, "I will with God's help," do we dare to say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening"? A new president will be inaugurated on Wednesday. That's 2 weeks after an attack on the legislative seat of our national government, not counting sieges and surroundings of our governor's mansion and capitol in Olympia. Accountability is being pursued on those who perpetuated the attacks and those whose job it was to prevent it. We're getting a little more daylight each day. We've already got tulips blooming. Not a lot more daylight, not a lot of flowers, but light is breaking in the darkness of winter. Things are changing. We'll also probably hit 400,000 COVID-19 deaths today. Maybe tomorrow. The state of systemic racism broadly, and in policing specifically, isn't actually any better than it was 3, 6, 9 months, years, decades ago. Rustin Shesky, who shot Jacob Blake 4 times in the back, wasn't charged for anything in Kenosha. Meanwhile, we see on social media images of police happy to calmly talk to people, shouting about mask usage. In the midst of all this, we have Eli telling Samuel to answer God. "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." We hear Jesus tell Philip, "Follow me." And then assured Nathanael, "You will see greater things than me knowing you are under a fig tree." Samuel is being trained as a prophet by Eli, ministering to the Holy One of old, and thinks Eli is waking him up, disturbing his sleep by calling out to him. It's God. Nathanael is sitting under a fig tree doing who knows what, perhaps studying as a rabbi or making a private confession to God. When Jesus, the Son of God, sees him from afar, Nathanael asks, "How do you know me? Where do you know me from?" Jesus gives a literal answer: under the fig tree. Nathanael is listening and hears God's voice in Jesus answering that question. And he believes. Samuel and Nathanael have listening hearts ready to hear and see, waiting for God to activate and use them. That activation and use doesn't come with certainty or promises, though. Presumably, Philip and Nathanael at least have jobs from which Jesus says, "Follow me." They don't know what's next, but they trust the God who calls out to them and wants to make them a part of God's story of redeeming the whole cosmos. If we look around, we're there too. Or we can be, if we're willing to listen. Deaths aren't the only COVID-19 number that I get to track now. 12.25 million Americans have gotten their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccination. And second doses have been going in arms the last 2 weeks. We believe that all good things come from God, who sometimes acts in miracles and sometimes acts through scientists, and always acts in goodness and love. We have our annual meeting in 2 weeks, and it'll be different. But it gives us the opportunity to start wondering how we might listen to God calling our name, knowing us under our own fig trees. Yes, we'll elect some new Bishops' Committee members. We'll hear about what we did this last year, as if we didn't all live it. And we can also start wondering how to follow Jesus in our anti-racism work as a community, from book club to action that so many people wanted. It's hard to make plans about anything concrete because so much transition is happening. Vaccines are being administered. I just pinged my phone from my watch. Sorry about that. Right now, vaccines aren't being administered quite fast enough. And we don't know how much longer we'll have to meet like this. I'm having trouble mentally planning or trying to plan for Ash Wednesday and then Holy Week. Because who knows what's going to happen between now and then. But as with the longer daylight, light is breaking through the darkness. In John's Gospel and in Samuel's life, and all around us now, are times of transition. I don't know what's going to happen, certainly not on what timeline. But I know that Jesus doesn't tell those he calls, "Okay, go figure it out on your own." Rather, Jesus says, "Follow me," with the assurance that there is a there. When Samuel says, "Speak, your servant is listening," God speaks and gives him a difficult truth. The passage continues with, As we go through this year brimming with possibilities for when and how we are all safely back together to worship and work in the gospel of Jesus Christ, I hope you'll start saying, or keep saying, "Speak, Lord. Your servant is listening." I especially hope you'll do that when you open What's Happening or listen to the announcements. In inviting God to speak and answering Jesus' call to him, we're assured you will see greater things than these. Amen.